Forget what you learned in school. Never mind what your parents told you, and disregard what your friends say. From now on, the only people you need to listen to are these guys. For the next several minutes, they'll take you on a journey through the political jungle. And when your journey is over and you're safe at home, they promise you'll be stronger, smarter, and just plain better. So buckle up, hang on to your ears, because your journey starts now. Boy, I'm glad we can get that cow out of the studio.
I know it.
We were asking the manager to do that for some time.
Bugging us all week, but I mean that's what they do.
I know it. Well, when you get into these pubs all over the place, it's these things can happen.
I watched that
we had chickens before.
Like bar rescue show or whatever the hell the show's called. I don't like it, but I'm forced to watch it because it's on in my living room and I'm too lazy to move out of the living room.
Understood.
He rescued a bar that they had a horse in the bar. He came in and the horse almost got hurt, which wasn't cool at all, but they got drunk and rode the horse in through the door.
Was the horse 21?
I don't think so. That's why they kicked it out eventually, but you know, it didn't have a wristband on or anything either, so I don't know how it got in.
Horses are tricky. They're a lot smarter than we think they are.
They are. I know.
They look stupid. They act dumb. But really, they're pretty smart.
They're smart. I mean, look at Mr. Ed. Proof.
Exactly. Well, we want to thank you for visiting us at Odds for another enjoyable journey. We're at the Horn and Powder Pub and Studio in a large city in a small country.
In England.
England. Da, 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 da.
I don't know what you're doing other than scaring everybody away.
That was Rule Britannia.
Yeah.
Rule Britannia, Britannia rule the waves. We shall never, ever be enslaved.
Huh.
Yeah. Also, if we still have an audience, we're going to be talking with firearms instructor David Nash. We're going to discuss his book called Understanding the Use of Handguns for Self-Defense. We'll be discussing his book and other topics in regards to self-defense and preparing for the worst, so don't go away. Remember, we are a call-in show. You can call in at 248-455-ODDS. In other words, that's 248-455-6337.
Yeah, and don't forget to send us emails with questions, comments, whatever, to talk@oddshow.com.
Good or bad?
Good or bad.
Let us know.
Preferably good.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get any good ones.
We might.
Like us on Facebook and visit our website, www.oddshow.com. We also want to remind you that Nate and I wrote a book called My Parents Open Carry. It's a kid's book about the right to keep and bear arms, self-defense, open carry, concealed carry. It's about a mom and dad who go about their business openly carrying a handgun for protection of themselves and their family. And Brenna goes along. She's a young girl. And they go about their day and they run into all kinds of people. What?
Oh, nothing. There was something that we had talked about, but then we forgot to talk about it before the show.
How did we
so
talk
we could
about
talk
it
about it now?
No, what's that?
Or we could wait and we could announce it next show. That might be a better idea. We will have an announcement coming up, a fun contest. We'll talk about that next week, though. So that's a little teaser to listen next Tuesday. Right? We're live Tuesday, 7:30 p.m., which is when you can call in. Also rebroadcast on Red State Talk Radio throughout the week.
Eastern Standard Time.
Yes, Eastern Standard Time, or sometimes Daylight Savings Time as well.
So if you're in China, you've already heard the show.
That's right.
And if you're in California, you won't be able to hear it for another 3 hours.
It's tomorrow there.
No, it's not. It can't be. I don't believe that.
Well, tomorrow is yesterday's the day after tomorrow.
Your best buddy, President Obama, gave a speech in Connecticut about gun control. with, of course, police officers in the background, like he did in Denver. Except a lot of the Denver police didn't like the fact that they were being used as
None of
props.
them do, but they're public employees, and they're told this is what you're going to do, and the unions support it that they're part of. And,
Sure, they get paid for it.
And so they end up being put behind him as a backdrop. He's either using children as human shields or police officers as human shields.
Of the two, I'd prefer to use police officers as human shields instead of children, but...
Well, if
that's
you have
just
to
me.
choose, but maybe he's the president and he shouldn't use anybody as a human shield except the people who are paid, like the Secret Service.
Yeah.
That's their job.
But that's bad enough. But what he did do then was fly.
Yeah, 11 relatives of Sandy Hook victims, children, and I think one member of the staff that was murdered in Sandy Hook Elementary. He plans, or already did, I'm not sure which, but put them on Air Force One, fly them to D.C., so they can meet privately or meet in person with their senators to lobby for gun control. So he's using my airplane, your airplane,
Mine.
to lobby and campaign for gun control.
To take away our rights.
To take away our rights.
Yeah.
The Second Amendment, which there should be no debate about it.
Absolutely.
You can't just have a vote. In these, there are several senators now that are joining an effort saying they'll filibuster any gun control measures because they don't want to rush them through.
Right.
Let's put them in front of the people. Let the public view them for a few days, right? I mean, that would be good. I'd like to know what they're voting on.
Yep.
And it sounds like they might bring something up for a vote or for debate.
Wednesday
Or Thursday.
Yeah. Or Thursday.
And we don't know what they're going to debate. I mean, in general we do, but we don't know what's in the bills. But the people who are threatening to filibuster are being attacked because they're getting in the way of progress. Well, the way it works...
Some of them being attacked by their own party members.
Yeah, for sure. There's Republicans
that's
saying
ridiculous.
they won't take part in it. But the way it works is you can't just have an up-down vote on the Constitution. You can't do that.
That should be deliberated over for a long, long time.
There is a way to amend the Constitution. It is not through Congress. The states need to be involved, right? I mean, there's this whole convention, and you have to have a few of the states.
I think the states have to be
A few
involved.
of the states have to agree to it.
Generally.
And you don't just get the representatives that, go to Capitol Hill and decide that they're going to change the Second Amendment, and that's what they're trying to do.
It's a living, breathing document.
Yeah,
You
it
can
is,
change
isn't it? Yeah, I mean, I have a copy of the Constitution, and it often
evolves.
makes itself eggs for breakfast.
What's that?
Because it's living and breathing, it has to eat, too.
I like eggs for breakfast.
So do I, but you're not a Constitution.
Not yet.
Not
I'm
even
not.
close.
I'm not even
close.
a bill on Capitol Hill.
Did you hear what the president said? Was let's make it a little harder for our children to be gunned down. Like he's admitting the fact that they're going to be gunned down, right? But let's make it a little harder. While I'm in Connecticut saying this, which has strict gun control, how about this coward? Take your coward ass to Chicago and have this discussion. Go to Chicago. I mean, you're too much of a coward to go where you're from.
Hundreds of
where
children
more
killed.
people die there every day than died in Sandy Hook, right? Why don't you go there?
He hasn't gone there, has
He's
he?
way too much of a coward.
Yeah. Also, he keeps saying that that pesky Constitution gets in the way of him doing what he wants to do.
Yeah, that was one of the comments he made was, I'm not a dictator. I wish I was, but I'm not a dictator. But I am constrained by this system that the founders put in place.
They said
I'm sorry.
They said it was put there to actually constrain people like me from being a dictator,
It's just
but
not fair.
it seems to be working, and I don't like it.
Man,
Jesus.
I don't, and why would you need guns to fight against a tyrannical government? That doesn't make any sense.
No,
I mean,
they'll just nuke you.
Yeah.
Our military will just drop bombs on all the cities in the United States. Now, how rational is that? I mean, that's
right. Yeah.
I hate that. Bill Maher said that one time. Oh, these people really think they're going to fight the government. They have nukes. They'll just nuke. Really? Are they gonna just drop bombs all over their own country to stop a rebellion? Come on.
The thing with being a dictator and a leader by power is that you have to have people to lead. So they can't exterminate everybody.
So they could drop one bomb.
They could drop one or two bombs on some of the conservative cities. And that's what they would do if that case happened. And Obama's...
Are there any of those left?
Obama's... No, not really. Not big ones, anyway.
Not big ones.
Obama's entire political career has been about destroying his opponent, not by getting his ideas accepted. Yep. It's destroy his opponent. Not physically yet, but, I mean... That's how it is.
That's
he tears
the
him
next
down.
Step,
he did it to McCain. He did it when he was running for Senate.
Yeah. Well, speaking of dictators, this doesn't have anything to do with that. This is PETA trying to buy a drone so that they can spy on hunters that are out hunting.
Yeah, this is brilliant, and I saw this actually on their blog. Don't ask me why I was on PETA's blog today, but I was.
And it's just go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, it's just going to be a little drone that's going to have a camera, and it can only go up for like minutes at a time. It can't be up very long. So I don't know how they're going to employ it. I think it's more of a PR campaign to try to counteract their bad PR they got when they found out. People are finding out that PETA is killing all the dogs that they get dropped off at their headquarters. They keep them for less than an hour.
What?
And PETA actually came out and said, we are not opposed to killing animals. We just want to do it in a most humane way as possible.
Right, and hunting and then eating and using
the animal
is not a good way to do it.
And fishing, too. Fishing is cruel. You can't do that either.
Yeah.
PETA's absolutely horrible.
Oh, yeah, they are.
But people, donate millions of dollars to them.
Don't worry, because they reassured everybody that they don't plan on having this drone weaponized.
Yeah, I like that
to
comment.
go along with their non-violence policy.
Don't worry, we're not going to have missiles on them. We're not going to shoot the hunters for shooting games lawfully.
I'm not a scholar of things like the dictionary, so I'm not sure what violence means. But to me, it seems very violent when they take over a fur outlet store or a leather shop and rub red paint all over all of the products and destroy things. That seems it's not violence maybe against a human being, but it seems like a violent act.
It's certainly a destructive act.
Yeah, sure. That's why I said I'm not a scholar of the dictionary.
I know words not good. You couldn't be more wrong.
Me fail English.
But going along with that, now this isn't exactly a drone, but in Dayton, Ohio, the city apparently is contemplating hiring a private contractor and spending $120,000 of taxpayers' money to get this private security company to fly surveillance planes to spy on the citizens of Dayton. How do you like that?
Well, you know me. As long as private industry is
right,
involved,
I knew you would be involved.
Big business.
Yeah, as long as it's private.
Is big oil involved? Because if big oil were involved,
I'm sure it is, but it's not mentioned.
If big oil were involved, and maybe the Bushes, Halliburton, maybe, I would be all for it. So I mean, if they could do that, then of course I would be all for it.
It's still $120,000 of taxpayers'
It's absurd.
Money
It's
to
completely
pay.
absurd. I don't care if it's a private company doing it or not.
Were you being facetious?
It was facetious-ism.
Go back to that dictionary.
Yeah, no, of course that's unacceptable. I don't want to be spied on.
No, I know.
I don't know if you want to be spied on. I like to know about it when I'm being
I like
spied
to videotape myself. But
I like to spy on people. I have several drones in my garage.
That's a different,
and some flying around. But I mean,
thing entirely.
It's my prerogative. I'm not using anybody's tax money except that subsidy that I got.
They're going to look over private property and spy on you. I don't know if that's going to get passed or not. I hope it doesn't. But hey, efficacy, that's a word. How about efficacy?
Efficacy. I do know that one. It means goodness.
It means how efficient is something, because I think efficacy comes from efficient. But, yeah, there was a nice, stupid statement by a U.S. representative.
Yeah, from Colorado, Diana Degette.
She ought to get the hell out.
She should, and these people in Colorado that are electing
What's going on?
I mean, we have Carl Levin and Debbie Stabenow back in Michigan, in the States.
What was the joke that they didn't realize that Colorado had been acquired by California?
Yeah, well, right, and I've told you,
and you mentioned that.
I've mentioned that that's really what
happening.
it is. It's the gay rights, it's the pro-marijuana rights that are pulling these types of representatives in and having them elected.
Not realizing that once they get in, they stay in for a long time.
It is big California Hollywood money that's helping with this stuff in some cases too. So, I mean, really, that comment isn't too far off. But you want to hear what she had to say about banning firearms?
Let's set it up. Apparently, she had
magazines.
She had a forum.
It was an open forum in Colorado.
Was
she was there. There was a sheriff there. Public was there. Press was there. She was asked, what is the efficacy of banning high-capacity magazines?
When there's millions of them out there.
Right. And this was her answer.
What's the efficacy of banning these magazine clips? I will tell you, these are ammunition. They're bullets. So the people who have those now, they're going to shoot them. And so if you ban them in the future, the number of these high capacity magazines is going to decrease dramatically over time because the bullets will have been shot and there won't be any more available.
And I think it was Sheriff Smith was sitting right next to her, close to her, had his hand up halfway through, going, ooh, 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 me next, me next, me next. And basically he said, let's get the facts before we try to, kind of talk about this stuff and pass laws. And if you've never shot a gun, maybe learn about it a little bit. Now, her office did clarify. I don't know if you have the exact quote or not. But
I don't.
Okay, her office did clarify what she meant to say. She said magazine when she should have referred to clips, which are not reusable as they have no feeding mechanism. Yeah. And now I have, before the boating accident...
Well, that clears everything up.
Before the boating accident, I had a firearm that would take stripper clips, and you basically put bullets on them.
And you're talking about bullets again. All right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a different story.
Yeah.
And you use these clips.
It involved a boat,
they're actual, metal clips.
Yep.
And they certainly are reusable, it turns out. I've had the same few for several years before the boating accident.
Right. Or the strippers drowned.
Yeah, they did. It was terrible. It was terrible.
Tragic accident.
My lawyer told me not to talk about it, but it was tragic.
Certainly not on a public forum.
But her clarification did nothing except further
her ignorance.
The idea that she has no idea what the hell she's talking about. She also, there was like a 91-year-old man that stood up and said, you talk about these getting rid of high-capacity magazines, so then...
We don't need them.
We don't need them because if someone's attacking, we can tackle them while they're reloading. He said, well, what about me in my house? Right. 4 attackers come in. If I have to reload, they're going to tackle me while I'm reloading. Right. And he's an older gentleman.
And the arrogance of this bitch when she said...
Yeah, she said, well, you'd probably be dead anyway if they had that kind of firepower, which was the part that I wanted to clarify because... It was reported that she said you'd probably be dead anyway, and the insinuation was she was talking about his age. She did say if they had that kind of firepower, but he's her constituency. She should care about him, and you shouldn't just say, well, whatever, the criminal's going to win. But who cares?
Did you hear the other part where she added that it's lucky you live in Denver?
Ah, yeah, because the police will be there
in a couple minutes.
Just a couple minutes. When seconds count, they're only a couple minutes away.
That's the other illusion and ignorance. They can't be that stupid. I say it's intentional.
Yeah, I think it probably is.
Because I can't believe human beings can be that dumb. But, yep. I think they are.
248-455-ODDS, 248-455-6337, addoddshow.com, facebook.com/addoddshow. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with some more stuff. And David Nash coming up.
The voice of American conservatism. WRS Digital, Red State Talk Radio.
Hey, Nate.
Yeah, Brian?
You like candy, don't you?
Oh, I love candy.
Well, then you're going to love this site I found. It's Old Time Candy, and they have the kind of candy you ate as a kid.
Oh, really? That's really cool.
Yes, Nate, it is cool. It's the bee's knees and the cat's pajamas. They have candies from the 1920s right up to now. If you can't decide what you want, you can order various size decade boxes. They have Slowpokes, Black Cows, Wax Lips, Root Beer Barrels, Fruit Stripe Gum, Atomic Fireballs, and the politically incorrect bubblegum cigarettes. They have regional candies you can only get in certain parts of the country, like the Goo Goo Clusters. And they have old-fashioned toys and so much more. If you want a trip to the past, click on the banner on our webpage at www.atoddshow.com. You won't be disappointed.
Real radio for real Americans.
Red State Talk Radio.
Hey, Brian, you like beer.
I do.
And liquor, too.
Oh, I enjoy a wee bit.
And I've definitely seen you drink a glass of wine or two.
Yes? Why are you asking me all this?
Well, I found an excellent online source for all kinds of spirits. It's called Wine Globe. They have a fantastic selection of wines, beers, and liquors, from moderate price selections up to high-end and hard-to-find brands. So, if you're interested in ordering your favorite drink or exotic spirits, they're all located at your fingertips. All you have to do is head over to www.adoddshow.com, click on the Wine Globe banner, and start your search today.
And we're back. You're listening to At Odds. I'm Brian.
And I'm Nate.
Hey, remember when we talked, this was, not even a month ago, this was in Michigan, about the guy who had, communism equals socialism equals no food type signs. They had some political signs up on the side of his semi-trailer. Great big signs on the side of, they were on his farm and his property, but they were along an expressway. And
that doesn't matter,
people
private
didn't
property,
like it,
man.
And they said he was in violation of an ordinance because political signs could only have 20 square foot of volume per the city ordinance. And it went to court, and we got a ruling. The judge overturned it, and it said that he gets to keep his sign. The judge said, in this application, in this case, that it is unconstitutional because of this distinction between political and commercial signs. So if the township can change the ordinance to say no sign can be this big, then he would have to take it down, which I think is really ridiculous.
Yep.
But since they said political signs have to be smaller and commercial signs can be bigger, unconstitutional. So for now, he can keep his sign. It'll be up to the city to do what they want to do. Hey, we've got some sad news. The Iron Lady, Baroness Margaret Thatcher, died this week.
Yeah, that's too bad. I mean, she took over prime minister position in Britain when they were in a lot of trouble.
Yep.
And this was around the time that Reagan was president too. It was this weird mirror image of the two countries that were in trouble and hired conservatives. She was actually part of the Conservative Party. That's what they do there, to be clear about it. And she made drastic changes and saved the economy. Yeah. Now. Did you see the parties of these idiots out in the street that were partying now that she died?
Yeah, I know.
And all this shit, and attacking police officers and burglarizing, places and whatnot. But the problem is she busted a few unions in the course of the years of saving the economy, and turning England around a bit. And she did it all by herself. A woman. She was one of the longest.
Well, that's why they called her the Iron Lady.
Longest. Well, actually, Russia. A Russian newspaper gave her that moniker, which was kind of weird because they weren't the best friends, right? With Russia, the Cold War, that whole situation
quote
going
that
on.
She actually said she liked Gorbachev, that she could work with him.
Yeah. Yep.
So what'd she say about Ronald Reagan?
Ronald Reagan. She said something like Ronald Reagan was the second most important man in her life after her husband. I assume.
I'm assuming.
I assume that's who. And she stayed in politics as long as she could. Her health was going down. She was 87. Died of a stroke. Very sad. I think the world will miss her.
We get old and we die.
Yeah, we do. And she wasn't that involved, in the last few years. But it would be nice to have a few more women like her.
You want to do a few quotes from her?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Just as a tribute?
Sure.
She said, socialist governments traditionally do make a financial mess. They always run out of other people's money. It's quite a characteristic of them. And then she said, pennies don't fall from heaven. They have to be earned here on earth. I like that one. Mm-hmm. Do what you know is right and important. It is the high road to pride, self-esteem, and personal satisfaction. There can be no liberty unless there is economic liberty. You would agree with that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
We had a discussion in private about lying, whether we thought lying at all was right or wrong. And she said, you don't tell deliberate lies, but sometimes you have to be evasive.
Yeah. She's a politician.
I know.
And I like this one in particular because it's so true about anybody who you don't like, you find fault. And it says, if my critics saw me walking over the Thames, they would say it was because I couldn't swim. I love that.
And that's exactly the case. I mean, on both sides of the British Isle, right?
Yeah.
We'll miss her.
Rest in peace.
Much like Reagan's passing, was a big deal to people who
they're a gone era. Those types.
Yeah. I just noticed they have a copy of the Federalist Papers here in this bar.
They do.
Never noticed that before.
Really?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Good read.
Really? Have you read it?
Yeah.
It's a little dry sometimes, but
that's only if you don't care about knowledge.
Right, and I don't.
Right.
Or freedom,
That's
or
obvious.
liberty.
That's obvious.
Something said, not good. More gun companies leaving states that have enacted, tyrannical gun rights. Colt, I think, is going to leave.
Unfortunately, not coming to Michigan because much like we have a coward as president, we have a coward as governor back in the states in Michigan.
Yeah. Colt's been in Connecticut for a long, long time. Beretta is leaving. I heard they're going to Texas. They were courted pretty hard by the governor there, and I think they offered them all kinds of economic
set up shop right in Houston, the very liberal city of Houston.
Yeah, I don't know, but I suspect they're going to get their building paid for, their taxes abated, all kinds of things, which is fine.
Oh, and you mean there will be jobs created in Texas because of it?
I heard an interview. Colt was Colt. They sell like 2,000 ARs a month.
Wow.
Figure $700-800 is probably a wholesale price. I don't know. That's millions of dollars a year just in that rifle.
Yeah.
And
that's
they
because
employ
it's
a lot of
evil.
people.
And evil things make a lot of money for
and
people.
It's not
if
common.
It makes
it's not
you
used
rich,
for common defense at all.
If it makes you rich, it's evil.
Yeah. Looks like some of the sheriffs in Colorado might file a lawsuit against the state, and they might have our pro-Second Amendment attorney Dave Capel, who is a constitutional law professor at the University of Denver's Strum College of Law. We'll see what happens with that. They're not sure, but they're discussing it. They got half of them so far, and they figure they'll get more that'll sign on. You hear about the old man that's getting charged for shooting a bear that was attacking him?
Yeah, I did
yard?
hear about that. But the problem is,
what?
He hung pieces of meat and honey
on
his bird feeder.
He did not. That's the thing. They're charging him for having the bird feeder, saying he was baiting the bear and wanted to intentionally shoot it. Now, I don't know about that. The bear was 400 pounds and 7 foot long. That's a big black bear.
I'd fight it.
Like Daniel Boone?
Yeah.
Wrestle him a bear when he was only 3. So he shoots this bear in self-defense, and they're going after him. And, of course, this is in Massachusetts. You wouldn't think there'd be bears there, but, there are.
Yeah, it's interesting. It could have been Mitt Romney.
They said they got him set up like some kind of murderer. They told him, he should have called the environmental guy. And he says, what was I going to do, Mr. Bear? Could you excuse me, please, while I go make a phone call?
Well, probably what he could have done is vomited on the bear or...
urinated.
Yeah, passive resistance.
Uh-huh.
Gandhi it. I think would have been the proper... Now, if PETA had been there with their drone,
yep,
they could have saved this bear's life.
Or they could have injected it with sodium pentothal so it would die,
Humanely.
Humanely.
Right, yeah, they could have done
like
that,
they do
too.
all their kittens and their dogs.
PETA is murder.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, more of the man keeping us down. Brooklyn cyclist gets struck by a unmarked police car by the NYPD and then gets a bill for $1,200.
You shouldn't have been standing there.
Yeah. We did a show last October where they did the same thing. This time they actually ran over and killed a guy and sent his widow a bill. So
yeah, it's ridiculous. It sounds like they've decided to waive the fees because they're nice enough. They never apologized. But it sounds like they might not charge him.
Yeah, they're going to drop the fee because he hired an attorney. It's funny how they drop things when you have an attorney.
Yep. And the press started asking questions, but
we're going to take a break now.
Yeah, come back with David Nash.
Hopefully we'll be back with David Nash. We're experiencing some thunderstorms here in England, and we don't want to lose the power to the bar because if we do, the whole show shuts down. So if we go off the air suddenly, we're either been killed or we lost power. But we'll be back in a few minutes.
Red State Talk Radio.
The idea of government taking over health care is enough to make you sick.
The conservative voice.
I will never forget the day my son Jeremy told me he hated me and slammed the door in my face. I'm behavioral therapist Janet Lehman. Behavior problems can turn the child you love and your life into a nightmare. That's why my husband James and I created the Total Transformation, the step-by-step program that shows you how to fix the worst behavior problems and get your child to respect and listen to you again. No matter what the behavior, defiance, backtalk, angry outbursts, disrespect, we can help you stop it. Now you can get the Total Transformation for free. All you need to do is get the program and let us know how it works for you. You can keep it forever for free.
Limited number of free programs available. Call now. 1-800-257-2873. 1-800-257-2873. 1-800-257-2873. That's 1-800-257-2873.
Great shot, Bob. I think you're on.
I just followed your lead.
Hey, by the way, did you break ground on your new building?
No way. I'm holding off until I see what the future holds.
So you're seeing a fortune teller or
You
something?
know what I mean. Things look a little uncertain.
The only thing certain in business is if you're not growing, you're losing. Yeah, we just opened our 5th facility last week. If you're following my lead, you'll call General Steel. Their pre-engineered steel buildings could save you as much as half the cost compared to conventional buildings, and they're up in nearly half the time, and back with a 50-year structural warranty.
Yeah, but steel buildings...
Hey, you've seen my building. Does it look like steel?
No, it looks great.
Ask about rebates that could save you up to $20,000. Look, you can stop paying rent and own a building that suits your business better and probably saves you money by operating more efficiently. In times like these, don't stop spending, just spend wisely.
800-398-8309, 800-398-8309, 800-398-8309, 800-398-8309.
Red State Talk Radio.
Why spend more than you have to on your life insurance? Did you know that term life insurance rates have fallen over 60% in the last 15 years? At the Life Insurance Quote Line, we monitor the rates, features, and financial strength of hundreds of life insurance products. For example, a healthy 40-year-old can protect his family with $500,000 of 10-year level term for less than $20 a month. Rates for women are even lower. And don't forget to ask us about the new term life policies that guarantee your money back even if you don't die. Since 1986, we've helped tens of thousands of people just like you save a fortune on their life insurance. Why not find out how much you can save? Write down this number and call today for your free quote. 1 5-minute call is all it takes. Call 800-610-3497. 800-610-3497. That's 800-610-3497. Rates, policy forms, and availability vary by state.
And we're back. You're listening to At Odds with Brian.
And Nate.
Our guest is David Nash. We have him on the phone. I'd like to say a little bit about him. David is a former U.S. Marine and a former corrections supervisor and firearms instructor for the Tennessee Department of Corrections. He's the owner of the Shepherd School and posts do-it-yourself videos on YouTube. David believes that knowledge, skills, and attitudes, as well as proper mindset, trump having the newest or fanciest gear. David is a do-it-yourself prepper, and he likes to think of himself as a prepper MacGyver that is able to take academic knowledge to formulate on-the-spot solutions to a wide variety of problems. David has a bachelor's in science in emergency management with a minor in homeland security. He is a certified firearms instructor and can teach a variety of self-defense skills. He is the author of Understanding the Use of Handguns for Self-Defense, and his website is www.tngun.com. David, welcome to At Odds.
Hey, thank you for having me.
So you wrote a book, How to Use a Handgun. I looked at some of the table of contents, looked at some of the stuff. Looks really good. You get into a lot of stuff about mindset, about actually what happens, before, during, and after a gunfight, those types of things. You want to just tell us a little bit about your book in the broadest strokes, and then we'll get into details in a minute.
Well, as a firearm instructor, especially doing carry permits and training new shooters, kept hearing the same questions over and over. There's a whole lot of misconceptions from the media talking about, gun show loopholes and all sorts of misinformation. And so I wrote the book, basically as a beginner's manual for somebody who knows they want training, but they may be a little hesitant about owning a firearm. So we do a lot more, mindset discussion in the book before we get into the actual how to shoot. Because anybody can teach you how to shoot, but the when to shoot and the if guns are for you, that's a little different. That isn't talked about as much.
And you cover all of that in your book. It's a great book. I recommend it. Why don't you tell us a couple of common mistakes that handgun shooters make and maybe long gun shooters as well? What are some of the common things that they do wrong, and how can they improve their shooting?
Well, people try to, as a general rule, a lot of folks, especially new shooters, they want to try to run before they walk. They want to learn a bunch of tactical, fancy stuff before they actually learn the fundamentals. The fundamentals aren't the coolest thing in the world, but they're what allows you to always hit the target. People get overly stressed out, and they don't realize that shooting isn't an art form. It's a science. All you have to do is just know the fundamentals, apply them, and it's very easy to shoot.
Well,
it's not some mystic science that only a few people can do.
Well, what are some of the mistakes? Now, a lot of people do the teacup. They hold the teacup instead of wrapping it and things like that. Can you give us any tips in that regard?
They'll tend to manipulate the trigger improperly, meaning they'll either put their finger too far in the trigger, which will push the gun off to the side, or they won't put their trigger finger, they won't put it far enough in, which will pull the gun to the opposite side. So they need to put the trigger right on the middle of the pad of the index finger and just pull straight back. If you jerk the trigger, or a lot of times people have what they call, you'll hear the people talk about a surprise break, where the gun should go off as a surprise to you. And I think that's kind of a mistake in terms. It shouldn't be a mistake. You should know that you're pulling the trigger. But what they mean is, a lot of folks will have, the mental talk as they've got the gun on target. They'll, my sights are aligned, and I'm going to pull the trigger. I'm going to pull the trigger, and then they'll go right now. And then when they do that, they'll pull the trigger, and it'll end up jerking it and throwing their shots low to the left. If you're shooting on the target and all your rounds are hitting low and to the left of your target, if you're a right-handed shooter, then you're probably having that anticipation where as you're up on target, you're thinking to yourself about what you're doing, and you're saying, I'm going to shoot right now. And when they do that, they kind of jerk.
Yeah,
so that's a big mistake that I see quite a bit.
Yeah, I can. I've done that with new shooters myself. Is I'll have them shoot like a revolver. Let's say they'll shoot 6 rounds, and then I'll load it and I'll put in 3, and then I'll take one out and put a couple more. And when they fire, you can kind of see if they're doing that, because when they hit that empty chamber, you can see their hand jerk as they're expecting it to go off, and it's not going off, and then they can really get an idea that, oh yeah, I see what you're talking about now. I'm anticipating that shot.
In a general day-to-day scenario, would you prefer openly carried firearms or concealed carry firearms?
Yeah, what's your views on that?
I tend to tell my students that, if you want to carry open carry, pursuant to the laws of your state, every state's a little different.
Right.
For a political statement, I can understand that, and I'm not against that. It's Second Amendment, it's your right. But from a tactical perspective, I want to carry this gun for self-defense, then I recommend carrying concealed, simply because I've spent a lot of time talking to convicts, talking to felons, and felons pick people that they think that they can beat, right? And if you carry concealed, then you have the option of whether or not you're going to employ your gun. But if you open carry, and a bad guy chooses you, then he already knows about your gun, and he has the upper hand because he's already formulated a counter response to you.
Well,
so I always recommend carrying concealed.
All right. Well, that's contrary to a lot of. There was a Department of Justice survey that actually talked to convicts, and they said they totally, absolutely try to avoid anybody they think or know is armed, and so actually open carry may be a deterrent to being a victim. I guess I look at it like if you're concealed carry and the bad guy doesn't know you have a gun, he might rob you, take your money, and then run off with it. But if you're openly carrying, he might say, well, I'm going to wait until the next guy comes along because I know he's armed, and therefore you, avoid the whole interaction with the criminal. I mean, there's some people that would argue that way as well. You don't feel that way?
Well, that's a valid argument, but the Bureau of Justice has a monthly newsletter, and one of the older issues, I want to say about 2008, they talked to some convicts that shot cops, and in one particular case, the bad guy went to a parade and he said, I'm going to kill a cop. And he walked up behind several different officers, and then, they're all open carry and they're uniformed police, and he finally picked one. He said, why'd you pick that guy? And he said it was because of his attitude, his posture, the way that he was carrying himself.
Well,
he looked like he couldn't handle his business with the, So I would say if you walk around confident and secure, they're going to pick someone else anyway.
Well, how about this?
And I like having that ace in the hole of having my gun concealed.
Right, but we're not going to compare law officers in that argument. That's different. They often, might get shot because everybody knows they have a gun and they're wearing uniform. But are there any cases where somebody has been a civilian, a non-police officer, that's been picked out to be shot for that reason? I can't think of any. So I don't know if that's a good argument.
I can't either.
Yeah. But I see what you're saying. But the thing is, what I'm saying with the concealed carry is like it's your ace in the hole. That's true. But it's almost like you want to shoot somebody, so you don't want them to know you got a gun so that they will attack you, and you might want to shoot them, where if you open carry, you could avoid that whole interaction. So, I mean, there's that sort of mindset that some people open carry for.
And we have some anecdotal evidence, actually, that open carry has deterred some crimes. But whether you're carrying openly or concealed, David, I think you would agree that being aware of your surroundings is probably one of the most important tools you have. Do you have any tips for people of how to be aware, things to look for, and what you could do even if you don't carry a firearm, but just be aware of what's going on around you?
Well, a lot of folks as they get into that mindset, they start to become hyper vigilant and overly, they've got the color code system, the Cooper color code system of white means you're not aware, yellow means you're aware, red means that you alarmed on something. A lot of folks tend to want to go a little too far and maybe expect trouble, and that's real hard to keep, day to day. It's a pretty exhausting, psychologically as well as physically way to walk around expecting trouble 24/7. But I would just say, if you're going to go armed, you need to be alert. And so you need to train yourself to see what's going on versus just looking at things. And I'll give you an example. When you're on the range and you're practicing shooting, when you're done shooting, before you holster your gun, you should look, to your side, look behind you to see if there's any other bad guys, any other threats before you holster your gun. And a lot of guys, you'll see them maybe on YouTube videos or some of the classes, they get into that mechanically. And they shake their head to the left, they shake their head to the right, but they're really not seeing anything.
Yep.
Yep,
because it becomes...
So what I try to do is when I practice, I have a guy, put up 2 fingers or 3 fingers or something that I'm actually looking for. So I'm training myself to see rather than just walking around,
that's a good,
what-ifing.
That's a great point. Yeah, you could have a guy on both sides of the shooter after they're done and hold up different things, and they have to tell you what they saw. That's a very good tip. I'm sure some of our listeners will do that with their friends when they're out shooting. You talk about mental impairment, and this is something you're never going to know about until you actually experience, but mental impairment during a life and death encounter, and you cover this in your book, which I think is great. You want to expand on that tunnel vision, the gross motor coordination goes to hell, everything feels like a block of ice in your hand, things slow down. You want to expand on some of that stuff?
All those things are symptoms of the autonomic nervous response. The adrenaline being dumped into your system to prepare you to fight. Fight, flight, or freeze. You either fight, you freeze up, or you run.
Right.
Now, what's interesting to know, and why I put it in my book, is because all those things are natural occurrences. But they don't happen to everybody, and they don't happen to the same person every time. You can get tunnel vision where, you can't see anything but the actual threat. It's why in a lot of gunfights people get shot in the hand, because that's what the gun's in the hand, that's a threat, and that's all people could see. Or they can hear what they call auditory exclusion, where, for hunters, if they go take their hunting rifle out and they go sight it in, they have to wear earplugs because it hurts. But I don't know very many hunters that hunt with earplugs, and because of the excitement of seeing the deer or whatever, when they shoot, the noise isn't the same because they have the auditory exclusion.
Right.
Or you can have all sorts of different responses, and it's very important for people to know what they are, know how to counteract them, so that if it occurs, then, that's natural, that's okay, where they don't get caught up in just additional stress and just kind of cycle because they don't know what's happening to their bodies.
Right, and you cover that pretty well in your book. I mean, you tell them this is some of the things that you can expect. So when they happen, don't concentrate on that. And you even talk about, relieving your bowels or your bladder. That may happen, and you say, don't worry about that. That means you're alive. Afterwards.
Yeah.
I mean, I read that in your book.
There's a reason people. Yeah, if you don't know that's a natural thing and it occurs to you, you might feel shame.
Right.
That what's wrong with me? But really, it's something that can happen. There's a reason that SWAT team guys, before they do a raid, they'll go to the bathroom.
Right.
To alleviate that symptom.
Yeah, sure. You obviously, aside from the firearm things that you teach, you teach self-reliance and preparedness, and you have a lot about that on your website as well. What are some cheap, easy, quick things that just a regular guy that hasn't really thought about being prepared, what are some of the first and most important things that they could do fairly cheaply and fairly quickly?
For their home, you're talking about?
Yeah, for their home.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, the first thing to do is to make a plan. A lot of folks, when they feel the need to prep, or maybe they see a TV show and they decide that maybe they're not ready, they'll just start throwing money at a problem, right? But they don't really sit down and think about what is realistic. What are realistic scenarios? So there's no sense if you live in Kansas to prepare for a tidal wave when really you need to look at tornadoes. So I would say the first thing you should do is perform a risk assessment and see what is likely to occur, and then what steps you can take to mitigate that. Like I live in Tennessee, so we have earthquakes. So I made sure that my water heater, is strapped to the wall so it can't fall over and break. That the gas line coming in the house is flexible so it won't break and burn the house down. But then, you will never, no matter how much you spend, you'll never be 100% prepared for everything.
Sure.
And so I try to make it a lifestyle and do a little bit along and along. If you just go to the grocery store and as you're buying your canned food or whatever for the week, if you just buy an extra can of food that, every time you go to the grocery store, store it under the bed, in 6 months you'll be surprised how much food that you have.
Right.
And then once you stored that up, then that saves you some money that you can start buying in bulk and getting better and better deals. There's really no need for a beginning prepper to go out and spend $3,000 on a pallet of freeze-dried food, because they don't really know what they want. Rather, if they put that money into just building extras of what they use on a daily basis, it's probably a lot cheaper for them, and it won't affect their lifestyle as much.
Right. That's a good tip there. Well, you can talk about how much food and water to have on hand, but that goes into your plan again on what kind of disaster you think is going on. First aid is important. What kind of emergency first aid supplies would you recommend?
Well, you can go down in the rabbit hole with that really easy. You can start buying all sorts of war surgery kits and all sorts of things on eBay or Amazon or different internet sites. But I try to stick with multiples of basic first aid equipment that I know how to use. Like, rather than going and buying a whole bunch of suture kits and all sorts of things like that, I buy lots and lots and lots of gauze bandages.
Yeah.
Things that are flexible that I can use for several different injuries, but that I am capable of using.
Yeah, very good. We have just a couple minutes here left. We're on the phone with David Nash. What are your some of your thoughts about the gun control debate that's going on in the country? Do you think we'll get much past at a federal level? And do you think things like assault weapons ban, high-capacity magazine bans, and things like that will do any good to decrease the amount of violence that we see on a day-to-day basis?
I absolutely think that it will not do any good. We don't have a gun problem. We have a criminal problem. But guns are an easy emotional fix. As I talk to people that are anti-gun or that want gun control, I find that they don't really have any understanding of the law. One of the sponsors of one of the federal bills now, they asked her, and it's on video. You can look it up on the internet. But she thought that magazines were one-time use, and that if they regulated magazines to 10 rounds, when somebody goes to the range and shoots their 30-round magazine, that it's gone. People are wanting to pass laws or saying they want to vote for laws, but they don't understand the purpose. They don't understand the cause and effect of the laws that they're putting out. So I would just say that before people want to debate gun control, they should actually learn what laws are on the books. And I'll give you a quick example. They talk about the gun control or the gun show loophole, right? That they don't want people to be able to go to gun shows and buy guns without a background check. Well, the federal law already says if you sell guns for the purpose of making a profit, if you're engaging in business, you have to have a federal license. And all federal licensees have to do background checks on every gun they sell. So if you go to a gun show and buy a gun from a dealer, they already have to do a background check. They're talking about background checks for private sales, meaning that when my son gets older, I want to give him a gun. I would have to do a background check to do that. I would have to, go through the process, which means the only way to stop that is to have universal gun registration.
Right.
And registration always leads to confiscation.
Yeah, that's the bugaboo.
And people don't understand the unintended consequences.
All right. Well, that's going to be the last.
But they'll say the federal.
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say that has to be the last word. We're running out of time.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's all right. And we're talking to David Nash, the author of Understanding the Use of Handguns for Self-Defense. You can go to his website, find out where to get it. It's available at Amazon.com. I'm sure you can get it in bookstores all over. If not, they can order it for you. David, it was a pleasure talking to you. You sound like you've got some great ideas. People check out his YouTube channel as well for a lot of great videos on guns and do-it-yourself prepping. David, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, well, that wraps it up pretty close. We're almost done, aren't we?
Yeah, we're pretty much out of time here. So
I want to thank you for listening to At Odds, and we'll be back next Tuesday at 7:30 Eastern.
We will, and listen to this rebroadcast because you always want to listen more than once on Red State Talk Radio. Head over to atoddshow.com, facebook.com/atoddshow, and email us talk@atoddshow.com. See you next week.
Bye-bye.